Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host Louis Sung, and today what we're going to be discussing is what exactly is it that the Miami Dolphins are going to be needing at the linebacker position this season. So we've already talked about a few times exactly who it is they already have on the roster. We've talked about David Long Jr. and the kind of impact that he could potentially have for the team. We've talked about what Jerome Baker is going to be doing now that he will, at least on paper, will have a little bit of a lessened role in the defense, which means he can do more of what it is that he does best. We've talked about Andrew Van Ginkel, we've talked about Duke Riley, we've talked about a lot of different players, but there is still room for improvement, and I am going to try to go ahead and go over exactly who the Miami Dolphins could pick up in an attempt to make that happen. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code FIVE, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code FIVE. Go to PrizePicks.com, use that promo code, get your $100 deposited, get $100 free on courtesy of PrizePicks.com, and go get started winning today. So let's go ahead and get into some of these free agent linebackers that are available. Admittedly, the list is not a particularly extensive one. In fact, it's downright bare bones if we're being perfectly honest about it. So just going down the list here, we're going to go ahead and notice that there are some names in here. For instance, there is Zach Cunningham from the Tennessee Titans. He's available. Now, with Zach Cunningham, he would essentially be what Elandon Roberts was for the Miami Dolphins. All Cunningham is really good at, and when I say good at, I mean this is really all he's good at. Zach Cunningham is a run-stopping kind of linebacker who would basically be the Elandon Roberts if we were to go ahead and sign him back up. The Titans dropped him because they needed to create some salary cap space. In 2021, he was actually one of the better run-stopping linebackers in the NFL, although most of the time he was playing as a weak side linebacker, not as a middle linebacker. So it's pretty clear that he has a favorite place that he likes to play. In 2022, things kind of went a little bit sour for him. He only ended up playing in a total of 6 games the entire season, and even at run-stopping, he wasn't particularly effective. So is he falling off, or is this just a simple matter of injuries getting the better of him? There is a distinct possibility that that is the case. An elbow injury plagued him throughout the 2022 season. It kept coming back. He just couldn't stay healthy, and the Titans decided, you know what, you're just not worth the effort. And keep in mind, the Miami Dolphins did just let somebody who is already well-versed in the defense and what it is that it needs to do, or rather, I should say, the previous regime's defense. So maybe that is where you could say, okay, there's a difference here. Elandon Roberts is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's reunited with Brian Flores, working under Mike Tomlin. And so with that in mind, maybe what the Miami Dolphins are looking for is more versatility. So we can probably rule out Zach Cunningham as any potential helper here. If we really need somebody to stop the run, we can probably look at somebody like a Duke Riley. He can do the job just as fine. It's not necessarily his specialty per se, but again, when versatility is the name of the game, you don't want to shoehorn somebody who is only really good at one thing. I liked Zach Cunningham as an idea. I like the idea of having somebody who is really good at one thing, especially when that one thing is supposedly the thing that Vic Fangio defenses are known for letting get by. His run defenses in the past have not been particularly impressive overall. Not to say that they're just straight up bad, but that is the weak spot of a Vic Fangio defense usually, because there is so much emphasis on the secondary and moving safeties and corners around the field. So Zach Cunningham, 28 years old, what would he be willing to take? I haven't seen any news articles saying that any teams are interested in him, so unfortunately, I don't see anything happening with him. Speaking of linebackers for the Pittsburgh Steelers, does anybody remember when there was this just loud uproar for the Miami Dolphins to draft Myles Jack? You remember Myles Jack? You remember that guy? He was the guy who came out of California, Los Angeles. He was supposed to be the next superstar linebacker, and when he was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, it was something that many Dolphins fans were lamenting because they really wanted to be able to get their hands on this guy. There was just something about him. In 2022, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, this was Myles Jack at the end of the season. He had 13 starts with a total of 692 snaps. He only had 3 tackles for a loss. He had a total of 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, 0 fumble recoveries, 0 interceptions. And even though we're not supposed to really use Pro Football Focus all that much, I know we're taking everything with a grain of salt. Their grades are not that special, blah, blah, blah. We've heard all of it before. But just so everybody is clear on what the numbers are saying, his overall PFF grade was 53.6, which is worse than Devin Bush. And he had fewer than 15 snaps per game over the final 3 games, which just goes to show you. It's not that he was not healthy. It was just that the Pittsburgh Steelers decided, you know what? You're just not worth the effort. And it was an easy cut for them to go ahead and do that. Myles Jack is now a free agent. He's free to look elsewhere. But what is it that Myles Jack is supposed to be able to do? He's supposed to be a run-stopping guy. He was touted in the draft as somebody who could be special in both pass rush, pass coverage, run stopping. He could do it all. And it looks like so far all he's really done is nothing at all. So if Myles Jack wants to find a team to hang out with, he's going to have to take a very severe pay cut, like a very severe pay cut, if anybody's even willing to look at him at this point at all. I would not be opposed to it simply because I understand the Vic Fangio defense is built to get the most out of everybody that he has. Vic Fangio, once again, he's supposed to be this just defensive guru that makes Brian Flores look pedestrian. At least that's what I'm going to say because I'm a Dolphins fan and I don't particularly care for Brian Flores at the moment. That being said, Myles Jack, if we're going to be talking about redemption stories, because we're doing it with Cedric Ogbuehi, we're doing it with Isaiah Wynn, we're still trying to redeem Austin Jackson after all this time, why wouldn't you try to get somebody like a Myles Jack to see if maybe we can revitalize his career under Vic Fangio? Who knows? Maybe Vic Fangio knows something that Brian Flores didn't. Maybe he knows something that can kind of reawaken what Myles Jack was supposed to be when he came out of the draft way back when. I am not going to hold my breath that the Dolphins are interested in him. In fact, I am fully convinced that the Dolphins aren't even glancing in his general direction. But I would say that if the Miami Dolphins were really interested in shoring up their linebacker core, I would at least be willing to take a look at somebody like a Myles Jack. Now, speaking of linebackers who I feel like could use some redemption, how about Melvin Ingram? Now, that might sound funny to Dolphins fans because they probably have fond memories of a Melvin Ingram. They didn't think he needed any redeeming to begin with. But I will go ahead and say that just for full disclosure, to me it felt like near the tail end of the season, Melvin Ingram was starting to slow down. It looked like he was getting tired. He wasn't playing with as much explosiveness as he had during the beginning of the season. But you know what? He's an older guy. He's 34 years old. He's not somebody who's just going to be able to keep up with the young bucks of the league the entire time now. He's going to need to be able to take a break every once in a while. But as confident as I was that the Dolphins were going to bring him back, as confident as I was that Melvin Ingram wanted to be back. And I still believe that in the back of his mind, he still would not mind coming back to Miami at the right price, I'm sure, which is, I'm not sure, a price that the Dolphins are going to be able to pay. However, if for whatever reason Melvin Ingram decided he wanted to come back to Miami with a slightly discounted price just because nobody else seems to be interested in him either, I would not even blink in bringing back Melvin Ingram, in spite of the fact that the Dolphins already have a bunch of pass rushers on the roster. And consider this. Just consider this for a moment. Malik Reed was supposed to be the guy who came in and replaced Melvin Ingram as far as the pass rusher position goes, right? We figured, okay, Malik Reed, he was good when he was with Vic Fangio. He was somebody who could get this whole thing to work. Fine, Malik Reed will take over for Melvin Ingram. He's 8 years younger than Melvin Ingram, so sure, he can take over that role. And of course, we still have Jalen Phillips. We still have Bradley Chubb. Jerome Baker is good as a pass rusher, not off the edge, but he is a good pass rusher. And then you still have guys who are like an Andrew Van Ginkel. Oh, wait, no, we don't. Hold on, watch this. Andrew Van Ginkel is now being looked at in the middle as a middle linebacker. So that means that no longer is he going to be looked at as a pure pass rusher, which means we also have space for somebody to do some pass rushing just strictly as a third down guy. And for Melvin Ingram to be relegated to a third down guy, I would not hesitate to throw him out there and just absolutely wreck any quarterbacks that dared to get in his way. Through the 2022 season, 17 games, he had 6 sacks, 15 tackles. He forced a fumble. I still remember that fumble. It was a great fumble. It was really lots of fun to watch him do what he did. He recovered 2 fumbles too. And on top of all that, he could provide some more veteran presence just to keep the linebacker room, just to give that extra bit of experience that maybe the team is missing. Let's not forget, just very briefly here, I have said many times before, I am against this whole ageism thing in the NFL. I believe that even the older players in the league still have plenty to offer. There are still many Dolphins fans, myself included to some extent, who are unironically looking at somebody like a Jason Peters, who is 41 years old, to potentially come in and play the right tackle position and probably beat anybody else who's there. He's still playing at a high level, even at that advanced age. And when I say advanced, I'm not saying the guy's due for the grave anytime soon, but once you hit your late 30s, you're supposed to be basically just useless to any NFL teams at that point. And yet, here we are. Jason Peters, he's still out there. Maybe some team is going to get desperate and bring him in, and they're going to be like, why did we wait so long to sign him? Because you guys are ageist, and you should stop doing that. Here we have Melvin Ingram, who's 34 years old, and during the start of the season, he was probably one of the best pass rushers on the team, if not the best at times. Jalen Phillips, yes, he was looking great. He was looking fantastic, but there was just something about Melvin Ingram early on in the season. He was just always around the ball. He was just making teams miserable with everything that he did. Every move he made, it seemed like he was always there. He was either right there, ready to crush the quarterback, or he was making a play in the backfield somehow. And let me tell you something, effort was not his problem. We had heard about he didn't care about practice. He was intense, and that kind of intensity is not something you just overlook. You just gloss over. You move aside. I would go ahead and bring in Melvin Ingram right now. I would sign him to another contract right now. Obviously, right now, with the way that the Dolphins are pinching pennies, or at least that's what it seems like, because they need to be able to keep some of these guys that they already need to re-sign. Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, Connor Williams, those guys need new contracts. We'll see if they all get one. I'm not going to hold my breath on that just yet. But if the Dolphins really want to push everything as far as they can, go ahead, bring back Melvin Ingram. Have him as a third down pass rusher. Pair him up with Malik Reed. Pair him up with Jalen Phillips. Throw Emmanuel Ogbah in there. Maybe you can turn him into a sort of interior defensive lineman kind of. Put him with Christian Wilkins. You would have one of the best pass rushing packages of the entire NFL if you just throw in Melvin Ingram, just to keep him on there, help him teach the younger guys, have him be on there like a Cameron Wake type deal late in his career. He was a pure pass rusher, and he got the job done. So I would go ahead and bring in Melvin Ingram for sure as a linebacker. And this is going to be the biggest one, and he's not listed on SpotTrack's free agent list. I've already said this on Twitter, and I'm going to say it here again now. The Miami Dolphins need to bring in Reuben Foster for another workout. And I understand that Reuben Foster had a whole lot of legal issues that were following him around, but many of those issues We later found out that it was fabricated by his then girlfriend just as a money scheme, which is honestly disgusting that anybody would be willing to fabricate these stories just to get some money and ruin somebody's life. Now, I'm not saying that Reuben Foster is some helpless angel who desperately needs to be defended. I am sure that there were other charges that had nothing to do with her supposedly, but we never really saw anything come of that. Now, I'm not saying that Reuben Foster has never done anything wrong in his life. For all we know, he has done a couple of things that probably you would raise an eyebrow out. Heck, right now, Tyreek Hill is under investigation for very similar things because he smacked the dude in the back of the head. Now, I still don't think that anything's really going to come of the Tyreek Hill thing, but it is still something that people are looking at with a raised eyebrow. With Reuben Foster, however, it hasn't all been just legal problems with him. A lot of his bad luck has also come from the fact that he just has not been able to be on the field very often. In 2019, after he was claimed by the Washington Commanders, he ended up tearing his ACL and his LCL, and that should have been the end of his career right there. His contract expired with Washington, and that was it. We didn't see anything. But he was on the field. He was a productive dude. He got a lot of really good stuff in there. And there was a reason so many NFL teams were looking at him as a potential first-round draft pick. Dolphins fans, Dolphins pundits were looking at him as a potential first-round draft pick because of just how much that he could potentially do on the field when he was healthy. But that was just the problem, right? He wasn't healthy legally, and he wasn't healthy physically. And now, here he is. He's desperately trying to get everything back in gear. He's with the USFL, with the Pittsburgh Maulers, and now, I know that everybody's talked about this before, but we're going to just bring it up here in case anybody did not catch on to what was happening. There was a question about the Dolphins getting a workout in for Reuben Foster. They actually worked him out last season, and they ultimately decided not to sign him. But now there's some new film of Reuben Foster thanks to his play in the USFL. So hopefully, with any luck, I think that at this point in time, with the Dolphins looking for linebacker depth, Reuben Foster, it's time to get him another workout. And it's not like he's going to be demanding a lot of money. At this point, I am sure that he is just desperately looking for pretty much any opportunity he can get to try to get back into the NFL. Because the USFL, listen, everybody loves football, but there's just something about that shield. Playing in the NFL is what every football player wants to be able to do. So, if that is the case, I think it's time for Reuben Foster to get another chance. I think that Reuben Foster, with Vic Fangio, he would be a fantastic fit. He would be a fantastic way of getting things done. It's a shame that Reuben Foster did not manage to hang around long enough to play with Vic Fangio, because I think that there would have been a lot there if he had been able to get that opportunity. So hopefully, it may be a few years too late, but as far as I'm concerned, it's better late than never. His agent made the suggestion that there has been talks about Reuben Foster getting in a workout with the Miami Dolphins. And we will see if that ultimately comes to pass. I think that if the Dolphins are smart, which they seem to be, I would like to think that Chris Greer is keeping an eye on any and all options here. And I understand that there's this concept of whether you are willing to trust somebody, if you're willing to give people a chance. They're not turning their backs on Tyreek Hill over everything that he did in the past or everything that he did now, which isn't a whole lot, but still. But with that being said, Reuben Foster, I personally feel like this is his perfect opportunity to get redemption. Let's build something special. Let's bring in a former first-round draft pick who actually had some production attached to his name before he ended up getting booted out of the NFL. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. If any of these guys end up getting signed later on in the season, I will be very interested to see how it all goes down. As for you guys, if you guys need to sign somebody to help get your car fixed up, you can go to You Break Wheel Fix and they'll be able to help things out. Just reach out to them at 305-748-0112 or online at youbreakwheelfix.com. And of course, if you're looking to make a little extra cash with your fantasy sports knowledge, go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up using that promo code. So once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.